Eh, Okay. So, scholars, today we are going to deal with the general steps for ICT researchers on data collection. I promise you last time when I was talking about social science, I will also explain about ICT. Now, you may wonder why this is important. To me, honestly, I started my research in social science. But as a researcher, I devised myself to work in ICT framework also. The reason why, nowadays, the ICT infrastructure, learning facilities, technologies, different language models using AI will help us to convert your social science research also into an ICT implementable model. Moreover, that my ICT researchers who are watching this session, I want to tell you this is a pertinent session for you. Why? Because here you are going to really going to connect and collect. I say connect, collect the real world into your ICT research framework. So today we are going to have a structured approach to collect high quality, ethical, and relevant data which comes with the real world phenomena for ICT researchers. But the good thing is that this is also helpful for non-ICT researchers. Nowadays, all researchers, the fundamental thing is that like we work with computers for our presentation and data analytics, your research can be transformed into an ICT framework. So our goal for today's session is how to collect accurate data, ensure data quality, protect ethics, and generate evidences that leads to innovation. Research is an innovation. Why it is called as innovation? Because of the reason that research bridges the knowledge gap or research step up with a new knowledge. So, as I told in my previous sessions, our basic role is understanding the problem. This is common to any kind of research. Defining our objectives, definitely it is common for all kind of researchers. Identify variable, there is no difference in ICT or non-ICT research or social science research. Now comes the source, where we are going to collect data. Majorly in ICT, other than people, we use devices, we use systems, we use logs. I'm going to explain one by one. So when we collect data, we have to choose methods and tools. So these are appropriate data collection methods and instruments to collect data, sense data. And once you collect data, you have to ensure ethics. It is field ethics. And when you go to the field, when you collect data, 100% you have to get an ethical approval as well as prepare the environment for data collection. This means what? If you are working with sensors, if you are working with IoT devices, if you are working with any kind of IT devices, your device ecosystem, data collection ecosystem has to be transformed in such a way that it should be tested, the errors needs to be corrected, the loss of data need to be managed. I'll give you with real life examples on the researches, what I do in ICT. Then once you collect the data, manage the data securely, then systematically store with proper data management practices. This is common for all researchers. Then verify the quality of the data before you analyze the data. Because in any kind of research, the data what you collected needs proper cleaning. You have to remove the values that are not properly endorsed, and really we have to convert them into evidences. Once you've done all these stages, 100% you can generate the knowledge, you can create innovation. That is the scope of research. You either make a new knowledge or you bridge the gap between the knowledge, either in the practice or in different scenarios. So we use evidences to build knowledge, develop solutions, and create a positive impact. what is the role of a researcher? The researcher gives practical solutions for problems through research, through scientific method. So to sum up on this board, data is not just collected. It is carefully designed, ethically obtained, with quality and purposefully analyzed to solve real life problems. So it is in ICT research, we have four things: people, devices, systems, and insights. So today we are going to see quickly how we can work with data collection in ICT research. Before we dive into this one, nowadays I am seeing number of my scholars. They do their PhD presentations. They get into whims and fancies because I'm seeing that the people who are in ICT research, they think that the latest technology is more valuable than real life problems. Because today I was conversing with one of my research supervisors. They are telling one of the students, PhD scholar, has presented the research concept, and it is a very complicated concept. But the scholar do not have a real life experience in the problem. So these supervisors, the people who are attending his presentation told the researcher, you know, you don't have an experience in this, so why are you involving and dissolving yourself in the research where your area of expertise, your area of involvement is different? So the scholar was telling, no, I am so much fancy to this machine learning, I'm so much fancy to cyber forensics, but the scholar don't have an experience. So it is a wrong path. I agree, technology is first. Machine learning, AI, that is a trend of the time. I agree with that. It is good to give a trend-driven research, but you have to check. You as a research scholar, you have to check where I can use this. Because the latest technologies in AI, blockchain, IoT, robotics, malware, everything attracts you. Because robotics is a buzzword, AI is a buzzword, AI integrated with robotics, along with IoT, everything is a buzzword. But don't put technology in the first starting point. Where your problem is unclear, you have little understanding of the reality, and this will create, you cannot adopt what you are doing. So my scholars, any research what you are doing, the correct path is problem first. And you have to make sure an impact-driven research. In this, you have to understand field reality, identify the problem, observation, gathering data, making sure you have proper research question. Then you choose the technology, you study the technology very well and develop a solution. So we have to see, put problem first and see what technology can help to solve this problem. If you don't have technology expertise, do internship with experts, learn with experts. So it will help you study, you can practice your own labs at home, you can do your own research at home. You can develop an ICT research lab at your place. So this makes you to work with evidence-based understanding. And this is and it will help you how to choose the right technology, and this will create a high impact technology and adoption of research. So make sure, I give some examples. Currently, I am working with smart agriculture. Basically, I have not studied agriculture science, but I put myself in studying agriculture commodities, what are the infectious things there, it happens to them, how we can improve productivity, what is the chemical composition that makes healthy soil, what is the amount of light that helps to produce better commodity that produces in a better way, how seasonal changes tackles. So I am focusing first on real agriculture. Then I focus which technology can be adopted, which technology can be used to make my research. This is how we have to make sure possible technologies come to your real world problem. So this will help you to create a possible solution. In healthcare also, reality understand the problem, then use the technology. Don't put technology first. You have to put the problem, your research problem first. Similarly, in transportation, logistics, in education, in environment. I believe Elizabeth is working on the reality problems of education, where we think about how AI integration can improve library efficiency, learning efficiency of university students. Other than that, technology involvement in environmental studies, maintaining a sustainable environment, this impacts both in social science as well as in ICT. So we can use ICT for environment management, which is a social science factor. So you can use possible solution. So the key takeaway is that first is researcher's mindset. You go to the field, observe. If you don't have involvement, when you say you are working on the fraudulent transactions in the financial segment using web technologies, online transaction, you never have an opportunity to involve in such kind of activities. Take an internship. Then understand the people, because you can do online internship. Doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter. You can approach companies that give you internships and tell them, I need an internship. My social science researchers also, I want to tell you, if you have some gray areas in your field of research, take internships. Go to the field, understand, talk to stakeholders, talk to experts. It will help you. This will help you to understand what is the reality and defining the problem in a better way. Then you can choose your technology, study your technology, how the problem can be resolved using technology. This will create a real life impact. So the field should teach you what you want to do. Then you have to bring the technology on board. So put problem first, then creates the research solutions. We know technology is first, but without an underlying problem, if you put technology first, it will not work you. This is the first thing I want to tell all my ICT researchers as well as my all non-ICT researchers. You have to put the problem first, then you bring the latest technology or the technology that will adapt, the technology that will fix better for your research problem solution. So I'm going to give you 1 to 18 steps. And this is more or less similar to non-ICT research or any kind of research. The first step, I will go quickly because understand the research problem. I'm going to put some examples. Why you are collecting data, what problem you are trying to solve. Because you are trying to generalize, you are trying to connect. The problem can be solved using an ICT research based on an ICT model by collecting data. Suppose you are studying on e-learning, which we explained more. Why we can do a research problem. Why do students drop from online learning platforms? Is that less engagement or the 4 quadrants of e-learning? Because I explained in my last session, what are the 4 quadrants? How the class is delivered, how the class is assessed, how the interactions happens, and what all opportunities the students get to submit their courseworks and assignments. So this is assessment. So in these 4 quadrants, what is missing? What it motivates the student? Is that good classes, how the quality of the video sessions, the quality of the content, whether the students are getting self-learning materials. The next, if you take smart agriculture, how we can improve crop disease detection using AI. If you're working on fintech and mobile banking, we can study what are the factors, technological factors that influence mobile banking adoption. If you are trying to study on smart cities and transport, how much smart traffic system reduce congestions? Because we know many places, the street lights, the lights, the traffic lights work on the density of the vehicles on each side. So it measures the density of the vehicles using camera or using sensors. And based on that, the switching of the traffic lights in the traffic junctions happens. Now, cybersecurity, how cybersecurity threats can be detected early. So, I'm just saying some sample examples. This is the way you try to understand your problem. So the key principle is, if no research problem and if no meaning data collection, because research problem is the major thing that makes you to collect the data. So the clear problem defines what data to be collected, and it is more important so that you can analyze the data properly and it gives a proper solution. So as I told in my last session, a well-defined research problem is the foundation of a good research. So define your problem, focus what you have to collect, bring the relevance of the data, and create an impactful research. This is the step one. Now, if you move to step two, as usual, like any other research, what are your research objectives? So, all the time, your research objective should be clear, measurable, focused, achievable, relevant, and time bound. This I already told in almost all my sessions. So data collections begins from objectives. The objectives will step by step guide you what to collect, and how to analyze. So always recall your research. So I give some quick examples of research objectives in ICT. As I told you, like e-learning, measure student engagement, identify factors affecting completion rates. So this will typically recall as the factors causing dropouts. If you take in mobile banking, what motivates people, what influences people to use mobile banking? And cyber security. What are the major network attacks? What are the indicators of that? And if you look at smart agriculture, how the measured factors, what we collect from the real farm field will affect the crop productivity. So objectives are the key principle. A well-defined objective. Ensure what relevant data to be collected and how much accuracy is required and how meaningful data collection can be done. So without objectives, data collection will not happen. Proper data collection will not happen. If no proper data collection, analysis, and you won't get a proper insight. But remember, you are doing research, but it is not connected. So no objective, no direction. No direction, no meaningful data. So start every research, either you an ICT, non-ICT, start the research with clear, measurable objectives. So focus is the objective, measure, relevance, and make sure it is happening in a time-bound period. So this is the step two. Define your research objectives. I hope I'm not too fast, isn't it? People, I'm okay? Am I lost?
Yes,
Any feedback? All right. Now, step three, identify variables. Look at any research, variables are the most important thing. Sometimes the variables of ICT research and social science research look similar, but there are differences. If you took a research area in e-learning, the independent variable may be platform usability. This platform usability leads to student satisfaction. So independent variable, the variable that cause or influence the dependent variable, that's how we have to study. So the dependent variable is either the outcome or effect variable. So if platform is good, user satisfaction is better. In mobile banking, if there is a trust, adoption will be there. In cyber security, if security awareness is there, threat incidents can be easily captured. In smart agriculture, the sensor accuracy gives you farm productivity. And if you take studies on smart cities, if you have sensors that makes proper traffic density and things, then it will lead to better smartness in the city. So these all things help us to make a suitable ICT researchers. So you know what are variables? We have dependent variable, independent variable, and other variables, that is control or moderating factors which can influence the dependent and independent variable relations, or how they are skewed or how they are connected. So the key principle is variables determines what data to be collected. So objectives give direction to the data, variable decides what data to be collected. So on this board, finally, I can tell you as the baseline, identify the variables that gives you how to collect data and better data collection. Then you can analyze the data and generate proper insights. So once we're done to step three, we are going to step four. This is some kind of difference because in social science research, the variables we transform to indicators. Similarly, we are here also, we are converting the variables into measurable indicators. How you measure user satisfaction? We know we use satisfaction score. How you measure trust rating. How we measure productivity, the output quantity. How you measure security awareness, the awareness of the test scores, what we use for testing the network security. If system performance, we basically measure on response time. I'm saying one variable and one indicator. Now, these indicators can be collected using many data collection points. This is how we operationalize the variables to an indicator. This is same in the case of social science research also. So up to step 4, there is no difference. So what we have to operationalize, we have variables, dependent, independent, moderating. So we have different variables. So make variables with specificity and make sure they have a measurable element, because I told in social science what we do to measure variables, we have to set its scales, and we have studied different kinds of scales, nominal, ordinal, ratio scales. We have studied many kinds of scales. So ensure accurate data collection happens. This will improve validity and reliability of the data. And this, if you have reliable data, valid data, this strengthens your analysis and research findings. So you cannot see a difference up to now in social science or in ICT research. So what gets measured is really what we manage in the research. So key principle, researchers collect indicators, not the abstract concept. You are collecting the real data. You are collecting the real data. So define it clearly, the variables, measure it accurately, and analyze smartly. This will lead to generate insights. So up to step 4, there is no big change. Now, when we go to step 5, identify data sources. Basically, in ICT researches, the common 3 sources, this is important. The common 3 major sources in ICT research, one is human resources, because without customer, without human interface, we don't need these things. The machine sources, system sources. So basically, your ICT research will be a combination of 3. Human source, machine source, and system source. So if like Elizabeth research, if you are working on the library effectiveness using ICT and AI integration, so we have students, and the machine sources will be the smart devices what we use. The system sources will be the database, server logs, application logs, and many things. So students, customers, farmer, employee, software users, all are your human sources. Now the machine sources, the what data you get from your sensors, multimodal data you get through your drones, GPS devices, IoT devices, your access points through cameras, smart meters, sensors, everything. Now where is this integrated? Using system sources, database, server logs, application logs, network logs, ERP system, all these 3 things. So now comes, you can see small bit of change. There is a shift from social science research to ICT research. Why I say this? Most of the micro researches or major research that the scholars present in ICT has more deviation to human sources. We cannot see data from machine source. We cannot see how the system sources are integrated. So human source is only one small element. I say it should be 40 plus 40, 80 and 20% human source. Sometimes I say 45 machine source, 45 system source, 10% human source. So it depends upon the kind of research what you do. Say like if you are doing farming, AgriBrain, what I am working with, the AgriBrain, AI brain for farming in coffee, how to improve coffee productivity, how to manage coffee problems, how to automate the coffee plantation, how to improve productivity, how to watch the market. Basically, the machine sources and system sources are more used. But apart from that, the human sources also have importance. Why? Because the people who use coffee are human. The people who farm are human beings. The people who vend coffee are human beings. The intermediaries, the sellers are human beings, isn't it? So human sources also have to give importance, but it should not be more on human source, because these devices and system sources manage the happiness and the feeling of using and adopting this AI technology for the agri brain. So you have to make sure you are going to give importance to which source. This is the most important thing. So the key principle on this board in step 5, most ICT researchers combine multiple data sources. So when you combine this, you get a real complete data and you will make reliable findings, better insights, and stronger decisions. This is the biggest change or shift what we see in ICT and social science research. So the quality of your research depends upon the quality, relevance, and the diversity of your data source. The diversity, a combination of all these things. So multiple sources, higher quality data, better accuracy, smart research, and great impact. So in step 5 onwards, you can see small changes that is happening in ICT research. Now, in step 6, select data collection methods. Now, again, we are using human-centered methods. So what we use in social science, like human-centered methods using questionnaire, interview, focus groups, and observations. Then we use technology-centered methods where we collect sensor data, maybe GPS tracking, what we do in the case of agri rover, it's path movements, log analysis, network monitoring, system monitoring, and API data collection. So maybe my non-ICT scholars may not digest this well because it is a bit more skewed to ICT researchers. But my social science researchers, again, you have a scope for the human-centered methods. The third option is mixed method, combining man and machine together. That is, human and machine data provides a comprehensive understanding, because as we know, who are using this technology, who are using this system, that is human beings. So human data using survey, interviews, observation, integrated with mission data, mission performance using logs, sensors, and system data. For example, the research which currently I am working with is a smart agriculture. The questionnaire from farmers, the sensor logs like the soil truthing, the soil moisture, temperature, and as well as light intensity. So all these things, the fertilizer capacity, automation for fertigation, automation for how to keep the moisture content. So all these things are a combination. So the key principle, most ICT researchers combines multiple data sources to achieve better accuracy, deeper insights, and make a strong, impactful research. So in ICT research, more comprehensive understanding, improved data quality, stronger evidence, better insights and decisions, great research impact. I tell you, when James submitted his research on energy dependency in mobile towers, my great challenge was with James that, James, this is a ICT, engineering, and a social science research. I believe now James can clearly distinguish what kind of research you are going to do in your micro research when you talk about the ICT as well as the energy segment. So I think this session will help you. And if you look at the mentoring, even you can use mentoring platforms using ICT technology for entrepreneurs, isn't it? So you can think of all the possible options when you work even in a non-ICT framework. Now, step 7. Here, the data collection tools. I'm not going to talk about how you collect data from human beings, because we have studied that very well. Questionnaire, interviews, observation, checklist. And you know which all scales what you use, how to measure it. But when it comes to technical data tools, depends. You can use system logs, you can use sensor data. For that, there are different kinds of templates available. Because once you buy a sensor, the templates, the quality of the data, the type of the data it is sharing to for analysis, the parameters, how to deploy, everything is available. And even you can get this data cleaned and collected to a CSV file for further analytics and controlling devices. Then you can get data logging sheets, because this sheet we use to record data from different devices in our experimental phase and also to train the models. Then API extraction framework, because you can keep application interfaces so that you can collect data, store in the cloud, and using that you can automate devices. Then you can have monitoring dashboards to see what is happening in the real time. So the monitoring dashboards can be on mobile devices, say like using Blink. Blink is a application development tool. You can use Blink, or you can use even the facilities in the Python. So all these things help you to develop dashboards. So the key principle is a well-designed tool. One side, the data collection tools using for human. The other side is technical data collection tools. To collect technical data, you should have a good awareness about the component that gives you data, the data type, how the data packets will look like, how many bits, bytes, what is the time frame in which the data is being shared. You have to know the time multiplexing, or what kind of way the data transmission takes place. These all things you have to understand technically. This will help you to improve accuracy. So, and it will ensure consistency, it saves time and enhance quality. If quality is there, data has a quality, then the research will be strong. Now, if you look at step 8, how we validate the tools. I'll give you an example, because we are implementing sensors to collect the soil truthing in 2 acres of farmland. So what we have done, we divided the farmland into 4 zones. Now we are going to implement, we are going to fix different sensors to collect data. And we have to make sure that the sensors give accurate data. So what we do, we use handheld devices to check the reading of a location, and we install our sensors and see how is there any variations. So if there is a variation, we correct the error. So what we have to make sure before we deploy, verify the clarity. Thus, the tools gives you clear, understandable, and easy to interpret. For my social science researchers, you do pilot testing, isn't it? So like you give face testing. You remember face validity. You can do content validity. You can do construct validity. You can do expert review. So these are the main methods of validation. So we look for clarity. We look for relevance, whether the tool designed to collect data is aligned with our research objectives. If you want to collect moisture, if you want to collect the intensity of sunlight, if you want to collect the chemical composition of the soil, if you want to collect the pH values, so if you want to collect multimodal data that will give insights to the growth of the plant or any diseases that are affecting the plant, so this all will give you completeness, accuracy, and reliability. So that's why you should have a good understanding what kind data is going to be shared by these devices and how we can process this data. So it will help us to work on the coverage, the items we are focusing, the relationship between the variables, and it will give you an expert feedback. So the key principle is here. Your tools are important. The only good thing with ICT research is your devices does not have a mood, does not have a psychology, does not have a distraction. But the ecosystem, if you don't maintain properly, it will distract. Suppose when you work in the farming, you have sensors that share data through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to your central console. As the farm grows, as the plant grows in size, as the canopy develops, this Wi-Fi connectivity may be lost or the data may be lost. If there is a strong wind, the data will vary. If there is a strong rain, heavy rain, the data will vary. And due to dust, the data will vary. So we have to make sure that when we use these tools, like what we said in social science, the background noise, the peacefulness of the person, how you build the rapport. Similarly, you have to build everything with your devices. You have to monitor your devices. You have to make sure your devices give you credible, trustworthy, fit and meaningful real data for analysis. So in ICT research, the validity, the strength, proper working environment, maintaining the right working environment, maintaining the devices are working properly are important to get higher quality data. This will gives you stronger accuracy. If all your devices are working properly also, you should have the capacity to ingest the accurate data. And you should have the capacity to analyze and validate the data. So this will give a better confidence, better research, better outcome, and better impact. That's how the ICT research different. Now, once everything is done, start your pilot testing. That's same. But here the pilot testing is something different. Because in social science, you go with your data collection tools and you do similar things. So if I take e-learning, for the human interface, you can give 20 questions. The mobile app of e-learning, you can test with 10 users. It can be a financial, you can test with 10 users. If you're doing an IoT project, what currently I'm doing, like, then you run the sensors. For one, we can see what are the actuals they are getting. So one side you run the sensors, collect data in your system data at a different geographical location. Meantime, you go to the field and collect data using other handheld devices and you compare the data. Thus, the reading what you get in the handheld devices are matching with the what data you are getting on your dashboard located at a different place. So this is more important. The goal is that to ensure your sensors collect accurate data. Like when you give the mobile app, you have to make sure that usability of the application on the mobile devices, how your users feel it. So this will help you to understand better. And if you are integrating with an AI system, run pilot predictions with the sample data. You can generate synthetic data, then you can generate you can get actual data. So synthetic data and actual data, you can train the models, validate the model, and make a better performance output. Like what we see in Netflix, YouTube, these prediction systems. If you are logging into Netflix for the first time, it will look into the geographic location you belongs to, and it will also look into the email in which you are logging into, and it will look into the region in which this email was created. So the region in which you are created, and depending upon that, it may start giving you initial predictions. But as you move through the Netflix interface, you keep on watching different types of movie. It will understand the genre of the movie you like. From that, it generates prediction scores, and it will start showing you, suggesting you. It's a suggestion system. It will suggest you which all you may like. If you look at YouTube also, you can see the same thing. If you are searching on YouTube more on research, then it will start suggesting you more on research-oriented content. If you are looking more on cooking, it will suggest you more cooking-oriented things. If you are more on music, it will suggest you. Why? Because this system start predicting. So the key principle, start in a small scale. Start collecting data, do pilot testing, verify the data, because our important thing is in pilot testing is whether you are getting proper data. Why pilot testing matters? Because pilot testing identifies, help us where is any problem in data collection. We have to see any tweaking of the tools has to be done. Is the environment in which the tools have set is working properly? So this will ensure data quality. Any research, data matters. In social science, you may be fetching data from human sources. You may be fetching data by observation. But in IT research, depending upon the kind of research what you do, you may be fetching data. You are fetching data from devices, from the system, also from the human beings. So this will help you into better way to optimize resources, prone to less error, and increases the research reliability. So when you work with ICT research, begin the research in small scale, then once it runs successfully, start to a large scale. So piloting is important. That is what we say in step 9. And step 10, prepare the data collection environment. So, forget about the human side. I'm more focusing on the data collection environment using devices. Set the devices operational. We have to make sure the devices are properly working and ready to use. Check the software accuracy. Check how the devices are connected. If the devices are connected using internet through cloud, if data backup is happening in cloud, Your cloud should be a secured one. It should be properly managed. And you have to make sure if you are doing a small researches, you can secure, development clouds. But if you are going to in a professional way, you have to subscribe for cloud storage. Apart from that, other than the cloud, you should have a physical backup in different place. Then you have to make sure security is happening. The devices are getting proper energy or electricity to work in a proper way. So right now in the farm, what we are planning to use is solar energy. So we have to make sure the softwares are working properly. If you need connectivity, internet is properly available, storage is properly done, the power is available properly. So these all will help you. And when data transfer happens, the data should not get corrupted. The security mechanisms are proper, and you should have a proper backup system. The reason is why at any point of time, these all systems can collapse and put you in trouble. So make sure the baseline of this board is to improve accuracy, to ensure reliability, to save time, to protect data for better decision. You have to make a better, proper data collection environment, which is tested, verified, which is working properly without interruption, which having proper power back, which is set in a secured environment, which is set in a secured environment, physically, digitally. What is physically? The sensors what you keep, the next day somebody takes it off, it will be a problem. What is digitally? Because no cyber attacks, no data corruption should not take place, and you should have a proper data backup. That is step 10. Now, if you move to step 11, it is ethics and compliance. People may think that what is ethics and compliance in ICT research? See, if you are fetching data, you should have informed consent. That is mandatory. And you have to save the data confidentiality. Like I was just taking a scenario. If you want to work on the fraudulent transactions that is happening in the banking sector, maybe ethics may be a problem. You may not be able to get it. Even if you are getting it, you have to put the privacy protection that you should not disclose from where you get the data, and you have to secure the data storage. And you are responsible for a proper usage of data only for research. Like when you work with the e-learning system, the student records, it will have their personal details and academic performance, even contact numbers, and even behavioral data. So that you should not implicate for other activities, even like health data, location data. When you use different devices, it asks you two things. While using the app, not to track, always track. So these are the major things you have to make sure, because we are informing your user, we are collecting your location. And that's a big deal. The wearables what you use, the mobile phones what you use, it always tracks the location with your consents. And with your consent. So similarly, the financial data, transaction records, account details, and financial behavior, you should not disclose all these things. So the key principle, majorly in ethics, in ICT data, you should save the data in confidential manner. You should not distribute to other people. There are many things that social media platforms collect people data and they sell to marketing companies. So it's all part of the business, isn't it? So I don't want to speak much on that, but ethics and complaints are not optional. They are essential. Either do you have an ICT, or non-ICT. Ethics makes an impactful research. It builds trust, protects your participants, ensures legal compliance, and enhances research quality, promotes social responsibility. Now you may think that if you are using sensors, if you are using drones, what is ethics? Make sure when you capture the data, if you find some people moving around, you should not use that data, and you should not use drones on people where people are interacting more, or you should not use all these multimodal data systems and surveillance system using cameras and other recording devices without people consent. So that is why you see wherever you go, you are under surveillance. You can see the board, you are under camera surveillance. So that's why, that's part of the ethics. And even when you talk with the support services, they will say you, this call is recorded for better customer service analysis. So, this is how people say that the call is recorded. This is how people says that you are being recorded in the camera. So that you have to make sure. Now, if you go to step 12, we have 6 more steps. Now, when you collect data, you should ensure that you get high quality, reliable, and relevant data. Any research, it is that one. But since you are using sensors, you have more control, not like with human beings. Why? Because if your sensors are properly fixed, if they are properly calibrated, if they are properly designed with proper connectivity, it will give accurate data. But we cannot 100% guarantee that human beings will give you proper data because masking will be there. Purposefully, they may hide things, but in sensors, it will not do. But the problem with all these machines are that we have to always make sure it is working properly. So that is why sensors, GPS trackers, IoT devices, cameras, smart meters, and the system logs what you get, the server logs, application logs, you have to make sure it is working properly. That is why when you use biometric devices, when you punch, sometimes you won't get the proper biometric reading. So we have to check. This is the challenge when you work with ICT. Is the recording consistently, properly, with valid data is happening? So we have to do quality monitoring of the data. Check for completeness. Check for verify the accuracy. Verify the actual data packet size, the right format. If any issues, you resolve by recalibrating or resolve data cleaning with resolving the errors in data transmission. This will give you reliable data. So in ICT research, while collecting data, maintain consistency, follow procedures, record accurately, avoid bias, monitor quality, and do it continuously. So the key principle, the green borderline, the gray line, the basic thing is high quality data need to be prepared. So if you want to collect high quality data, you have to ensure your data transmission devices, data collection devices are properly engaged so that no error takes place. Because if the data transmission is lost, or if the device failed to give the real data, your research will be in a chaos. Or your research will happen, it will not properly happen. So this is the most important thing when you work with ICT research. So then only we can take timely decisions, we can do timely automations, we can do timely engagements. So this is step 12, collect data. I hope my ICT and social science researchers can see the difference. The challenges for ICT, the challenges for social science, and goodness for ICT, goodness for social science research you can find. Because always ICT researchers ensure that your devices are kept in a proper ecosystem, maintained in a proper ecosystem, and it is monitored well with benchmarked data. If there are significant deviations, if there are outliers coming in the data, make sure there is a problem. So you should have some capacity, you should have some methods to observe and to find out these outliers and observe why it is happening and correct the data collection tools. That is the most important thing when you collect data. Now, this is more or less how you control the quality of the data. Because the data is transmitted from the sensor device in one format, and it is moved through the gateway, through the connectivity, and reaches your central console. So in this time, data can be lost. Because if you take in field robotics, or if you are in field, you may be sharing data using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices. So if you are sharing data using Bluetooth devices, you have to use high capacity Bluetooth devices so that the climatic conditions, the distance of transmission of data are properly engaged, and there will be very less data loss in between, so that we can avoid missing values. And we have to ensure timestamps, because at what time this data is collected, how it is consistent, and it is being synchronized. If you are using with GPS, you have to make sure that the real GPS coordinates are being called. It is being recorded. So if you are taking realistic data, if you are using flow sensors, if you are using pH sensors, if you are using electrolytic sensors, We have to make sure the real data is collected. And your sensor should give consistent response. It should not keep on changing things, and always make sure you have a backup plan. If one fails, what is the next way you can restore data? So data quality control is the major part in ICT research. If you take a comparison with social science research, how you get quality data, I told you, if you are able to build rapport, if you are able to introduce yourself, if you are able to build confidence, if you are able to listen to your respondents, if you can understand the ethnicity, the societal culture of your population, if you can understand how busy is your respondent. Similarly, you have to understand all the details of your senses, the tools which you collect data. So to collect data, you have to check the data, you have to clean the data, you have to validate data, and you have to approve this data before you store for further analysis. Because devices can give you erroneous data. And you as a researcher, if you use that error-based data, then the research will be not a proper one. So different examples like sensor data, you check the range. Like for example, temperature range, 20 degrees to 25, minus 20 to 50 degree. So we know an expected range. If you are looking at GPS data, it should be within the coordinate validation, the latitude and the longitude coordination. The latitudes in 2 digits and longitudes in 3 digits. So we have to make sure these should not flip. You should validate the coordinates. Then timestamp. Make sure you have a proper time stamping, like in the 4Y, double M and double D format. If you look at the time, it is HH, MM, SS. So we have to make sure it is working in a proper way. Is that being delivered in the correct format? If you are doing survey data, make sure the response consistency. And we have to check the data does not have missing values. So all data we need to back up, you have to clean and you have to work. So now we are almost coming to similar to that of other kind of researches. So, ICT research is a challenging one because always the scholar, the researcher has to make sure, not the scholar, the researcher has to make sure that data is available in the approved ranges and there are no significant outliers that will complicate the situation. If it is there, check it and sort out. Now, in step 14, this data we have to store properly. So you can have cloud backups, you can have external backups, you can do encryption to save your data, we can create password protection and access controls. Now, if you look at Google, Google has a OneDrive facility. Google has a facility in which you can store data in 2 terabytes, 1 terabytes. So there is other than Google Drive, it has a special facility. So if you want to store the data, you can store it in the Google Drive with a large amount of data. And make sure nowadays we have cloud services that provides data protection layers. So if you use all the cloud services, you can get better encryption, you can store data. And apart from that, you can store data in external storage devices also. So it is better if you store data in 3 segments, in cloud, external storage, and mirroring in a different geographical location. This will help you to store data, make sure data is secure. Now step 15, cleaning of data. See, you can take data from the IoT devices. So when we work with machine learning, we use basically CSV files. So there are different methods for managing missing data, methods to remove duplicate records, outliers. What are outliers? Suppose your sensor is supposed to give a temperature from minus 20 degrees Celsius to plus 20 degrees Celsius. And if you are finding 40, 60, 80, then there is a problem. These are outliers. So these outliers, too low or too high, we have to manage. Then we have to use inaccurate values, which are wrong, which are inconsistent, which are not in proper format. So all these things we have to manage. Missing data, duplicate records, outliers, incorrect values. Suppose you are getting age minus 5. If you are getting a date like 31st of February, then we know that there is no 31st for February. So, and we have to check in different countries and different devices, different applications use different formats of dates. So you have to make sure you are working with on that one. So this can be stored in Excel files. We can work with Python We can use R for analysis, and we can store the data using SQL and query the data using SQL commands. So this needs a kind of IT learning. If you don't have this learning, you have to study how we are working on. So this is how we do data cleaning. And you know, Python has a lot of libraries, Jupyter Notes, and even you can use Google Collaboratory so that you will get direct interaction in online system provided by Google servers. Only thing you need a proper data connectivity. Now in step 16, you do analysis of data. So I don't want to explain much more on that because we can do statistical analysis. We can do ICT analysis using Python visualizations. We can develop heat maps. Sorry, we can use machine learning models. We can use AI models. We can use analytics. So for human interface, we can use statistical analysis. Then we can use ICT analytics. Then we can use system analytics because I told you we have three kinds of data using log mining, network analysis, performance analysis. All these things we can use. So all the sources of data are analyzed in different ways. So in data analysis, input data, explore, analyze. When you input, before inputting the data, we have to make sure it is clean and it is prepared well. So this will help you to take decisions. So that is step 16. Now we are going to reach the last part of the session. The step 17, convert data into evidence. Almost ICT, social science, all researchers ends in this 8th stage. You collect reality in step 2 by measurement, observation, collect data that gives you information. You analyze the data, it gives you evidence, and it leads you to take decisions. So any research, what is the goal? Transform reality. How you are picking up the reality? You are picking up the reality through 3 sources minimum. Through human, through system, through your input devices that gives you data. So through your data fetching devices, IoT and sensors. So transform reality into reliable evidence, and that drives you to an impactful innovation. So as like any other research, ICT research is also from reality to decision through data powered by ICT infrastructure. So convert the data into an evidence that bridges the gap between knowledge or that give one step ahead of the existing knowledge. Now, you can generate this knowledge to an innovation. This is most important. What you have generated, you convert that to a AI model, mobile application, decision support system, or a software solution, or a smart agriculture system. So, these are the 3 things. Now, the most of the ICT researchers fail in one thing. They think of a software project. My scholars, don't think of a software project until you convert this data in the step 17 to evidence. Don't focus. Software is not your aim. Your aim is convert data into evidence to an ICT frame enabled solution. Once you come that, now you decide. If you are using AI models, that can lead to smart agriculture systems, isn't it? Cyber security, you can use applications. Digital transformation models for decision support systems. And software solution for technologies and things. So first is solution. That solution you embed using IT model. If you have knowledge, that can be converted to innovation as an impact. Sometimes I see when ICT research scholars present their research proposal, it looks like a master's or an undergraduate project report. Or it looks like a project. No, don't do it, because it is not project. It is what? A solution you are transferring to an real world problem solution, creates value that will empower the communities. Because when you work with agriculture, it will empower farmers. Automatically, it will empower the society and the country. And this will shape the future. Today's research, tomorrow's innovation that impacts forever. So these are the 18 steps. what we have seen in our ICT research. Now, I want to explain you this with my rover project, rover research, what I am currently working with. But due to lack of time, this I will guide you in another way. Before I conclude the session for Q&A, let's recall what we have done for today. I hope you can see my screen. Can you see my screen well? Scholars, I need a response. Oh my God.
Yes, doctor,
Yes,
I can see
doctor.
this.
Oh, all right. I thought I'm lost. Okay. So we are going to end up the session because it's almost 1 hour 8 minutes since we started. So before we end the session, let's recall what we have learned. Either you are an ICT researcher or you are a social science researcher. The transformation path is reality fetched to data. Data becomes information. Information becomes knowledge. Knowledge becomes intelligence. That intelligence becomes innovation. That innovation is going to impact. This is common transformation for all researchers. So some ICT researchers think that innovation is the software. Keep that aside. First, you follow the steps. Reality brings to data. That gives you information. That gives you knowledge. That develops the intelligence. That is the gap. How you bridge the gap, or you step up the knowledge. You add more element to the existing knowledge. That intelligence becomes innovation, and that creates an impact. So if you look at the session recap, our key journey is done through 18 steps, starting from your research problem, to your data collection, to your data cleaning, data analysis, convert data into evidence, and generate knowledge. That makes the innovation, that leads impact. So make sure in all researchers, these 18 steps almost same. In ICT research, we have 3 kind of sources to collect data: human interface, your sensor interface or your device interface, and next your system interface. So this is how we do ICT research. I hope my scholars, my ICT scholars, as well as my social science scholars, and all other scholars watching this all over, you get a clear distinction, and I hope you understood what is the similarity, where this ICT and non-ICT deviates at one point and how they converge to at another point. The only problem, the data collection. Even in some social science research also, they use data collection tools. Like in market, the footprints, number of footfalls in big shopping malls. They use IoT devices, isn't it? They are integrating how many people, how many footfall is there. From that, what is the total amount of sales that is happening in different outlets? Yes, these all measurements are done. So, IT integrated devices are also used in market research as well as in social science research. If you watch the face of the staff working in your environment, and if you have proper IT environment where you can detect the face, if you can identify the face cues, you can say whether the person is happy or not unhappy. Also, you can see the people, they come to office. If you use your biometric system, whether this person is motivated, engaged, or he has a chance of leaving the place. Because those who are not interested in job, they come very late. And the attendance system. So, to me, I say these all are together. IT and social science are together. Because if you look at IT, there is an element of social science. Because there is no use of technology if human beings are not there. And if human beings are there, technology can be infused well. So these are the 2 sides of the coin: innovation. I say IT, social science are 2 sides of the coin, because nowadays the world moves in an ICT framework. But reality may be different, but it moves in ICT framework. So reality to innovation, you should move together. And it is good if an ICT researcher and a social science research infuse together. That makes an impactful innovation. So the key takeaway: research is purpose driven. Later comes technology. Data is the tool. Knowledge creates the real change. So I thank you all for your participation. and make a researcher's mindset. Don't isolate with IT, don't isolate social science. It moves together. Let's work together to make innovation that impact the world. Research is not just academics. It is a solution to real world problems and contribution to better future. To some my social science and ICT researchers, first, get into reality. If you can fetch reality, it gives you intelligence. Then you can create innovation that leads to impact. So that is the end of today's session. Thank you for watching this session. And now I say that if you have any things you can mention to me. And thank you for watching this session. And over to you for anything that if you want to discuss, if you want to mention. So. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Over to you for questions.